Are you looking for a fun sweater pattern this Halloween's? If that's a yes, then you will love this crochet pumpkin face sweater that actually glows in the dark. Hey friends, welcome back. Today we'll be making this really fun tapestry crochet pumpkin face sweater that will keep you nice and warm and actually make you stand out in the dark, literally. And if you're new here, hello, I'm Shaz and I share fun crochet patterns and crochet tips for beginners. And if you would like to get notified whenever there's a new tutorial, just click that subscribe button and notification bell. Now for this pattern, we will need any category 4 yarn. I'm using Red Heart Super Saver in the color Carrot and a glow-in-the-dark yarn in the color Green. I'm also using a 6mm crochet hook for this project, and you will also need some stitch markers, a tape measure, a pair of scissors, and a tapestry needle. For this pattern, we'll be working from the top down for the back panel, and to start we will need the width of half our chest circumference plus 1 to 2 inches for ease. Here I'm making a size medium and I'll be working a total of 55 chains. You'll need to have an odd total number of chains for this. And for all the other sizes, you can get the free written pattern in the link below. Once you've completed all your chains, you'll chain once more to start the next row. Now into that second chain from our hook, you'll drop a loop. You'll yarn over, pull through one loop, you'll yarn over again and pull through all loops. This will be your first extended single crochet stitch. Now let's do that again. Insert your hook into the next chain, you'll drop a loop, you'll yarn over, you'll pull through one loop, you'll yarn over again and pull through all loops. We will basically be using only the extended single crochet stitch throughout the entire pattern. So go ahead and work your extended single crochet stitch all the way across. And because we're working on the back panel, this will give us an idea as to how many stitches and rows we will need to start our pumpkin face later on. Once you've reached that last stitch, you'll go ahead and work your extended single crochet stitch. And this is how the first row and the pattern should look like. To start the next row, we'll work one chain and turn our work. Now we'll skip that turning chain, and into that first stitch, you'll work another extended single crochet stitch. So you'll be working the extended single crochet stitch into every stitch all the way across. You'll continue to repeat this pattern for a total of 57 rows or until you've reached your preferred length. Once you've completed all your rows, we'll now work on the bottom edging. From your last stitch, you'll pick up your loop and work 8 chains. And you'll chain once more to start the next row. Into that second chain from your hook, you'll insert your hook, you'll drop a loop, yarn over, and pull through all loops. This will be your single crochet stitch. You'll be working 8 single crochet stitches all the way down the chain. And once you've reached that last chain, you'll turn your work clockwise. You'll skip that first stitch, and into the next stitch, you'll work one slip stitch to close up the row and another slip stitch to start the next row. You'll turn your work clockwise, always in one direction. Next, you'll skip that previous 2 slip stitches that you made, and into the third stitch, you'll work a back loop single crochet stitch. So you'll insert your hook through the back loop, you'll drop a loop, yarn over, and pull through all loops. From here, we'll be working single crochet back loop stitches throughout the entire bottom edging. Make sure to always count your stitches because you might add or miss 1 or 2 stitches. On your last stitch, you'll chain 1, you'll turn your work again in the same direction, and into that back loop you'll work your single crochet stitch all the way down. Once you've reached that last stitch, as you can see, the stitch here which is pulled up, that is your current stitch. So you'll go into the next stitch and work a slip stitch. You'll slip stitch once more, you'll turn your work, and you'll skip that previous 2 slip stitches that you just made, and you'll continue working your single crochet back loop stitch all the way across. Now you'll just be repeating the same pattern all the way until the end of the row. Just make sure to always turn your work in one direction because this will give our bottom edging a nice clean finish. And once you've completed all your rows, just bind off, and this is how the bottom edging should look like. Now let's move on to working on the front panel. You'll go ahead and work a slip knot and work the same number of chains as you did on the back panel. Once you've completed all your chains, you'll chain once more. And into the second chain from your hook, you'll work the extended single crochet stitch into each chain all the way across. And since you know this pattern already, go ahead and work a total of 13 rows for size medium. And for all the other sizes, go ahead and check out the link in the description box below. Once you've completed all your rows, we'll be working on our pumpkin face. Our pumpkin face has 30 stitches across and 20 rows in total. Our pumpkin chart pattern comes with an additional 2 rows before actually starting the pattern. So don't forget to take that into consideration. Before starting the pattern, we'll first need to ensure that we have the pumpkin's face in the center of our front panel. To do this, you'll need to take the number of stitches that you have and subtract 30 stitches and then dividing that into 2. I have a total of 13 stitches, so I'll go ahead and work 12 stitches and we'll switch colors on the next stitch. I'm now on my 12th stitch. For my next stitch, I'll be working another orange stitch, but before closing up that stitch, I'll go ahead and pick up my green color and pull through both loops to close up that last stitch, which is my 13th stitch. Now for my next stitch, I only need to work 1 green stitch. So what I'll do is I'll leave the orange yarn behind. I will not be working around it. For my green yarn, I'll only be working through the back loop if it's the front side and the front loop if it's on the back side. So you'll go ahead and work a back loop stitch, and because my next stitch is orange, so I will not complete this green stitch, I'll go ahead and pick up the orange stitch to close up this stitch. My next stitch is to work 4 orange stitches, which I'll work into the normal stitch. And on my last stitch, before completing that 4th stitch, I'll go ahead and pick up the green yarn and pull through that stitch to close up that last stitch. Now let's work 2 green stitches. Through the back loop, we'll work our extended single crochet stitch, And before closing up the second extended stitch, we'll pick up the orange yarn to close up that last stitch. For this pattern, I will not be working around the yarn. I will not be carrying the yarn throughout my stitches because I find that this green yarn is on the light side. So if I'm carrying the orange yarn throughout my green stitches, I find that you can still see the orange yarn hiding behind the green stitch, which is not suitable for this pattern. Now I'll continue with the pattern and I'll meet you back here on the next row. So I've just worked my way on the second row back, working towards the pattern. Now for my next pattern, I would have to work 2 green stitches, the first one being on top of the previous green stitch. So before closing up that last stitch, I'll pick up my green yarn and remember to place the yarn in front of you on the wrong side and pull through the green yarn to close up that stitch. For this pattern, I'll be working 2 green stitches. And instead of working through the back loop like I did in the front side, for the wrong side, I'll be working through the front loop. So you'll go ahead and work a front loop, extended single crochet stitch with the green stitch. And for your orange stitch, you just work a regular extended single crochet stitch through both loops. The tip to remember is whenever you're working on the right side, the green yarn will always be worked through the back loop, and on the wrong side, the green yarn will always be worked through the front loop. However, for the orange yarn, you will always work a regular extended single crochet stitch, except for when it is worked on top of the green yarn. So only then you will work a back loop on the right side and a front loop on the wrong side. I know it sounds a bit confusing, but trust me, once you started working on 3 to 4 rows, it should make better sense, I promise. This pattern is an intermediate pattern. However, if you're not sure how to do tapestry crochet, just take your time with each stitch. Remember to switch colors 1 stitch before the change and work your way 1 row at a time. Once you've completed the second row, you'll just work your way all the way to the end, and I'll meet you back here on the third row just before the next color change. So here I'm just switching to the next color, and make sure not to pull your yarn too tight, otherwise it'll bunch up at the back. Next, I'll show you how to do the float method. For this row, the number of green stitches are fairly long, and I don't want to have my orange yarn just hanging at the back without any support. So I'll show you how to do the float method, which will pin the orange yarn against the pattern so it stays nice and tidy. So I'll continue working my pattern as usual. Here I have 2 more orange stitches to make. Now on my next stitch, I'll be working 12 green stitches, and I'll aim to add the float in the center of that green row. So that will be on the 6th or the 7th stitch. Once I've reached that 6th stitch, I'll insert my hook through the back loop, and I'll go ahead and pick up the orange yarn at the back, and I'll place it on top of the hook and finish working the extended single crochet stitch while working around that orange stitch. So now I've pinned it to the center of that row. For the next stitch, I'll again drop that orange stitch and work a regular extended single crochet stitch through the back loop for another 6 more stitches. From here, you'll continue working the pattern all the way across, and I'll meet you back here on the next row. For the next row, here we have another long color change, which is about 20 stitches across, and I want to pin the orange yarn evenly along the row. I would choose to have 2 floats right here, which is roughly on the 6th or 7th stitch. So we'll go ahead and change yarn colors, and because this is the back side of the panel, we'll work through the front loop. This will also make it easier for you to see how we work the float method. On the next stitch, you'll go ahead and pick up the orange yarn and place the yarn on top of your hook, and I'll work my next stitch over and around the orange yarn. Now I'll drop the orange yarn and continue working the green yarn all the way across until the next 6th to 7th stitch. On the next stitch, I'll work my next float. So I'll go ahead and pick up the orange yarn and work over and around it. Now you can see the 2 floats that we've created, making it look nice and neat. And then you'll continue with the remaining pattern all the way across. For the next row, you'll have another long color change, roughly about 26 stitches in total, and you'll want to divide your floats evenly across. You can either do 3 floats or 4 floats. It is completely up to you. And you continue working the pattern while working on floats in small increments, similar to how we did on the previous row. For the 6th row, I wanted to show you how I work the orange stitch on top of the green stitch while working through the front and back loop. So here I've just worked 4 green stitches, and now I'll pick up my orange yarn to complete my 4th stitch. And because I'm working on top of a green yarn, instead of working my regular extended single crochet stitch and I'm facing the wrong side of my panel, I'll be working through the front loop of the next stitch. So I'll be working the extended single crochet stitch through the front loop with the orange yarn. Now I'll switch yarn colors to my green yarn, and as usual, I'll just work through the front loop. Again, I'll be switching colors to my orange yarn. I'll be working 4 stitches. I'll be working through the front loop. Just to remind you that you'll always work a regular extended single crochet stitch except for when it is worked on top of a green yarn. Go ahead and continue working on the pattern until you've completed the pumpkin face, and I'll meet you back here once we're there. Once you've completed making the pumpkin face, we will still have to add a few more rows at the top. For size medium, I'll be making 4 more rows before working on the neckline. But first, let me show you how the back looks like after completing the pattern. On your last stitch with the green yarn, you can go ahead and snip it off and weave in any loose ends. And as you can see, using the float method, we have a really nice and tidy join at the back, and there's no loose yarns across. So go ahead and work the extended single crochet stitch with the orange yarn and complete the number of rows you need before we proceed with the neckline. So I've just completed 4 rows and I've placed a stitch marker in the center of the row. Now for our neckline, we'll be working our extended single crochet stitch all the way until the stitch marker. And before the stitch marker, we'll work an extended single crochet decrease stitch just before we reach the stitch marker. So you'll go ahead and work your extended single crochet stitch all the way across, and I'll meet you back here 3 stitches before we reach the stitch marker. So here I am on the second last stitch before the stitch marker, and we have 2 stitches remaining. You go ahead and insert your hook and draw up a loop, and you'll do that once more. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. You'll yarn over and pull through all loops. This will be our extended single crochet decrease stitch. Now we'll do that once more on the next row. You'll chain 1, turn your work, and you'll work an extended single crochet decrease stitch. And then you'll work a regular stitch all the way across. And you'll repeat this decrease rows for a total of 10 rows. Once you've completed all your rows, go ahead and bind off, and we'll work on the other side. So you'll take your hook, insert it at the stitch marker. You can now remove your stitch marker. You'll drop a loop, chain 1 to secure. Now into the next 2 stitches, you'll work your extended single crochet decrease stitch, starting from where the stitch marker was. You'll work your extended single crochet all the way across and back, and I'll meet you back here once we're on the second row. I've just worked my way on my second row all the way down to the center of the body panel. I have 2 stitches remaining, and here I'm working my decrease stitch, chain 1. I'll turn my work, and we'll continue to work decreases at the beginning of the neckline, and we'll work the same number of rows as we did on the other side. Once you've completed, go ahead and bind off. Now we'll go ahead and work on the bottom ribbing. You'll turn your work, you'll insert your hook into that first corner stitch, we'll drop a loop, and just like how we worked on the back panel, you'll go ahead and chain 8. You go ahead and chain once more to start the next row. You'll insert your hook into the second chain from your hook. You'll drop a loop, yarn over, pull through all loops. You'll work 8 single crochet stitches down this chain. Now into the next stitch, you'll work a slip stitch to close up this row and another slip stitch to start the next row. You'll turn your work in one direction. You'll skip the previous 2 slip stitches, and into the third stitch, you'll work a back loop single crochet stitch all the way across. On your last stitch, you'll chain 1 and turn your work in the same direction. You'll work a back loop single crochet stitch into every stitch all the way across, and you'll go ahead and repeat this pattern until you've reached the end of the row. And once you've completed your bottom edging, go ahead and bind off. Now let's go ahead and work on our sleeves. We'll start off with 51 chains. Once we've completed all our chains, we'll chain once more to start the next row. You'll insert your hook, drop a loop, yarn over, pull through 1 loop, yarn over, pull through all loops. We'll be working the extended single crochet stitch into every chain all the way across. And because you know this pattern already, go ahead and work a total of 44 rows for size medium. And once you've completed all your rows, we'll be working on the cuffs. Now you'll turn your work and you'll insert your hook back into that last stitch. Go ahead and work 8 chains. We'll chain once more to start the next row. Into the second chain from our hook, you'll insert your hook, you'll drop a loop, yarn over and pull through all loops. This will be our first single crochet stitch. Go ahead and work a total of 8 single crochet stitches down the chain. Once you've worked your way all the way down, you'll insert your hook into that first row and work a slip stitch. You'll work another slip stitch into the following row. You'll turn your work in one direction. You'll skip the previous 2 slip stitches. And into that third stitch, we'll be working a back loop slip stitch. So you'll insert your hook, drop a loop, and make sure that your stitches are not too tight, and work a slip stitch. You'll continue working the back loop slip stitch all the way across. On your last stitch, you'll chain 1 and turn your work, making sure to always turn them in one direction. Now we'll continue to work the back loop slip stitch into every stitch all the way across, and it's very important to make sure that our stitches are not too tight. This will make it easier for us to work with on the next rows. And once you've completed all your stitches, you'll work 2 slip stitches, making sure to work an even slip stitch along the sleeves. And you'll turn your work in one direction. You'll skip the previous 2 slip stitches and continue working the back loop slip stitch all the way up. Now to continue this pattern on every row all the way across. Once you've completed all the row, you should have a really nice stretchy cuff. Now you'll turn your sleeve and fold it in half widthwise, and go ahead and place stitch markers along the side to secure both pieces together. Now if your last stitch is at the top of the cuff, just bind off and insert your hook back into the bottom of the cuff. Here, from your last stitch, you'll insert your hook through the back loop and into the first stitch, which is the chain stitch. You'll drop a loop and work a single crochet. You'll work a back loop stitch and a regular stitch through the chain stitch and work a single crochet. You'll continue seaming the sides with single crochet stitches all the way across. And once you're done, you'll turn your sleeve right side out and make a second sleeve. Now we'll be seaming the body panel together. You'll turn your body panel wrong side out and place stitch markers on every corner to secure both pieces together. And for the sleeve opening, you place another stitch marker on the 22nd row from the top down. You'll do this on both sides. Here, I've placed another stitch marker just to secure the pieces together. Now you'll insert your hook through the bottom edging. You'll draw up a loop and chain one to secure. You'll insert your hook into both pieces and work a single crochet. And don't forget to pick up any excess tail. You'll just continue to work the single crochet stitch into both pieces while ensuring that the pieces are aligned. Do this all the way across until you've reached the stitch marker just before the sleeve opening. And once you've reached that stitch marker, just go ahead and chain one to secure and bind off. Now you'll go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Once you're done seaming the sides, we'll now be seaming the shoulder portion. So you'll insert your hook at the top of the shoulders. You'll insert your hook through both pieces. You'll drop a loop and chain one to secure. Into that first stitch, while carrying along the excess tail, you'll work a single crochet stitch into every stitch all the way across until the next stitch marker. And once you've reached that stitch marker, just go ahead and chain one to secure and bind off. Now you'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Once you've completed seaming up all the sides, we'll now be adding the sleeves. Now with our sleeves right side out and the sleeve folded along the seam, we'll insert the sleeve through the body panel and connecting the sleeve through the opening. Now making sure that the seam side is placed at the bottom along the sides. Now align the sleeves to fit the body panel and place stitch markers along both pieces just to secure them in place, making them easier to seam later on. And once the sleeves are all attached, you'll take your hook and you place it through the underarm side. You'll draw up a loop through both pieces and you'll chain one to secure. From here, we'll be working single crochet stitches on both pieces while working even stitches along the row side, and don't forget to work around any excess tail. You'll do this in the round and I'll meet you back here once you're at the end of the row. Once you've worked your way all the way in the round and into that first stitch, you'll insert your hook and work a slip stitch to close up the round. You'll chain one to secure and bind off. You'll pull the sleeves out and repeat the same steps as you did on the other side. Once the sleeves are all done, we'll go ahead and work on the collar. Here I like to work along the seam side, so I'll go ahead and find the seam and insert my hook. Now I'll drop a loop and chain one to secure. For the collar, we'll be working 4 chains. For the next row, you'll chain once more, insert your hook into that second chain from your hook, and you'll go ahead and work a single crochet. You'll work 4 single crochets in total. And once you have 4 single crochet stitches, you'll insert your hook through the body panel and work 2 slip stitches. You'll turn your work clockwise. You'll skip the previous 2 slip stitches that you just made, and into the back loop, you'll work a back loop single crochet stitch all the way up. On your last stitch, you'll chain 1 and turn your work in the same direction. And into the next stitch, you'll work a back loop single crochet all the way down. So this is very similar to how we work the bottom ribbing. You'll just repeat this pattern all the way across in the round, and I'll meet you back here to join the collar. Once you've reached the last row, you'll sandwich both of the collars together, like so. You'll insert your hook through the front loop and the chain stitch at the back. You'll drop a loop and work a slip stitch. You'll insert your hook into the next stitch through the front loop and the chain stitch and work a slip stitch. You'll continue to work 2 more slip stitches along the collar. You'll chain 1 to secure and bind off. This will give you a nice join, which looks very similar to the collar's pattern. And we're done! I hope you've enjoyed making your very own pumpkin face crochet sweater that glows in the dark, and if you did, I would really love a thumbs up. And if you would like to be notified on more patterns just like this, just click the subscribe and notification bell below. I'll see you soon. Bye for now!